Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending this How Automation is Scaling Operation discussion panel. We are very excited to be here. These are very interesting times where basically the whole humankind is working in the same field, in the same challenges. I'm talking about climate change, and you can see how many people are here with the same goals. Today, we are going to be discussing how part of this challenge is going to be solved thanks to these guys that are here and what is a contribution to it. So let's go back to the challenge. The challenge is climate change. And one of the things that we're doing to overcome the climate change is through the energy transition. Because of that and the consequences that we are focusing on building more and more wind farms and solar plants. And that is great news. But that comes with some difficulties. Because we are building more and more renewable energies, now we are suffering or having to deal with electrical grid regulations. We have to deal with environmental restrictions because we want to kill as not many birds as possible. And of course, the amount of wind farms and solar plants comes with a huge amount of wind turbines and solar inverters and storage units and so on that we are building and compounding. Because of all this, the complexity of operation is increasing dramatically. And these guys here that I'm fortunate to be sharing the space with are the key people that are dealing with these challenges. So from Green Eagle Solutions, we want to contribute in two different ways. One of them is by creating the space where many people as possible are sharing their insights, their experience, and then their ideas. And the other way is by providing an automation suite software. The idea is that all the decisions that come from these discussions and experience then is translated to a software so we can actually share data in the same place and automate all those routines based on these decisions that are made. So thank you for coming again. I'm just going to show you a brief video. It's just 1 minute about our software, and then we're going to start the discussion panel. Thank you.
As the wind industry grows larger, so too do the challenges we need to overcome. Wind farms deal with extreme weather conditions, mandatory grid regulations, environmental restrictions, and many other complex factors that stress the assets, cultivating underperformance and downtime. To monitor and deal with all these issues, we built hundreds of control rooms. Control rooms are designed to respond to issues on a 15-minute average. The problem with this is the amount of potential energy being left on the table. For operators, the layers of complexity are compounded by having to take energy price fluctuations, as well as regulatory changes, into their daily concerns. For owners, these operational inefficiencies are limiting profitability. The industry needs an intelligent solution, and with more than a decade of experience working with control rooms of all sizes, Green Eagle has developed the ARSOS robot. ARSOS is a robotic process automation-based software that autonomously operates and applies one-to-one care to hundreds of turbines at once. Not only does it reset turbine faults as soon as it's safe to turn them back on, it's also capable of stopping turbines when the market, health status, or certain weather conditions are met. The outcome is more energy generated, lifespan extension, and ultimately an increase in profitability. Give ARSOS a try and start taking control of your profitability today whilst contributing to the carbon neutral world of tomorrow.
Well, thank you so much. I think we're ready to start with this discussion panel. I feel like this is just a chat between colleagues because I've been working with these people for a very long time, so I'm very excited to be here and very excited to continue to work with all of you. So I will start by introducing the discussion panel. Oliver, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to have to read this because you guys have a lot of experience. So Oliver has 18 years of experience in the wind industry, leading international teams to improve operations, performance analysis, digital solutions, and maintenance best practices across RWE's fleet. His expertise is in managing diverse teams and implementing effective strategies has contributed to the company's growth.
Sounds like me, yeah.
Antonio, you have 25 years of experience in the energy industry, focusing on technology implementation and process automation. Your areas of expertise include substation maintenance, distribution and transmission, and renewables control room management. Antonio recently led a successful automation software project for RWE's control center, enhancing performance and productivity. And last but not least, Sonia, with 16 years of experience in remote operations and dispatch centers, holds the position of heads of remote operations and dispatch center for wind and ICPS at EDPR. She is responsible for managing technical support teams, developing control system infrastructure, and optimizing plant performance across multiple regions. Her leadership has been essential to the IDPR success in this area. Well, you're here to share, so. So with this, we want to go to do a walkthrough how we have evolved in automation through the years. So Oliver, I would like to start with you.
Sure.
For many people nowadays, they would assume that we know that part of the foundation of automation and operation relies on the data quality, which is part of the digitalization process. Many people would assume that data is already a problem of the past. What's your thought of that?
I wish we could say that data quality is something from the past. It's true that over the last years, it improved a lot, the way that we were capturing data. Remember, 15 years ago, it was really hard to access data because there were no communication lines. We had to install satellite or radio connections at best. That's something that it has improved. But as you said, Alejandro, this is the foundation of everything else that we're doing on top of digitization. And unfortunately, we're still struggling getting all data or access to all the data. We need to understand why we want to use the data, and then we can access the type of data that we want to. One thing is historical data like 10-minute information or alarms and events. There are lots of solutions using that data, and I think that that's something that we have more or less under control despite having some flaws. But if we're talking about high-resolution data, real-time data, then that's a different story. And that's just the first step. Second step would be to combine this data, to start processing this data, to transform it really into operational insights, into something useful for the teams that they can use, and then they can start improving the way that we're operating our sites.
So I understand that the problem is not in collecting data anymore, but it's getting insights, getting what you do with that, right?
It's both. Certainly, it's truly transforming data into information. That's something that's why we need systems, that's why we need to automate, and that's why we need to really understand what we want to do, which sounds easy, but sometimes we focus our efforts on understanding or implementing a digital solution without understanding really which is the process, what's the part that we want to improve in our business, and then we can start talking about the digital solution. But we're still having issues having data integrated into a common data lake, for instance. I think that the systems need to be proactive checking data quality and raise their hand in advance. So when a user is detecting that a report is not reliable or that we don't have data to do the analysis, it's already too late. We're wasting our time doing some data sanity checks that shouldn't be done. So that's something that the systems should evolve to have more control on data quality.
Awesome. Sonia, what's your take on this?
Good afternoon, first of all, and thanks also to invite me to be here with Antonio, with Oliver, and with you, Alejandro, and all the Green Eagle team. You refer at your introduction and also in the video. For me, two key words that I want to refer now, that are the past and regulation curtailment. And I want to use or to say a reflection of how we manage, or at least how we manage in EDP renewables, and specifically in the Spanish market, curtailment. So at least from our experience, 15 years ago, we were manually applying the set points. When a global curtailment from the Spanish TSO arrives in our control room, our operators, we were side by side, SCADA by SCADA, applying the corresponding individual set point to the assets. More or less 10 years ago, we have already developed our first central SCADA OM solution that we call REMS. And the central system, or really the digitalization of all that information, allow us to be quicker, be faster in the reception and in the application in a unique system. But currently, in 2023, we are a step later. We have a new central system that because we are in the second evolution of the central system in EDPR, and we have also developed a specific system for the algorithms of the regulation. And now we have fully automate that application of the curtailments. And that's what does mean. And you refer in the video, Farsos, is to increase EDPR, in this case, incomes, and to also increase how we fulfill grid compliance, not only in Spain, because I have used the Spanish market example, but we are really replicating. We have already replicated this in the 8 countries that we have presence in Europe.
Tony, I don't know if you want to add something on the data quality and how the use of data, how has that evolved with the pass of the years in terms of operations?
Yes, thank you for the invitation. And the data, I think is the digitalization is a first step in order after not to be able to get the automation. Because if you have not a good quality, or a good SCADA with it, all the sensor, all the data, if you don't have the standardized data, it's impossible to do the automation. This is an important issue. And after when we have the data, for instance, we are working. We have the challenge that we have is that we are growing a lot. We have to take care a lot of wind turbines in a short period, and also the operator have make the decision quicker, and the decision take account the best performance and to operate of safe way of the installation. And also, this decision have a lot of inputs. Like you say, the scenario that we have to operate every day is more complex. The input that we have to take account is the internal, is the status, the status of the wind turbine, the health status of each component, in order to take account not to make the best decision to operate or make the remote reset or not. And the external, maybe it's not the framework regulation or the environment condition. We have this this scenario for one operator. It's impossible to make manually. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I think that this is a very fair point, Antonio, what you mentioned. So apart from getting data points, we're increasing the complexity of the different data sources that we're having. In the past, perhaps we were just focused on getting information from one single data source, SCADA or the work management system. Right now, we have understood after many years that what we need to do is combining this data, crossing it with other platforms, and then create the next level of information. So it also increased the level of complexity of that information.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So let me follow with you, Antonio, because as we are talking about, the data is the foundation of everything else, right? So without data, there's no way to. Sometimes we link data with analysis, analytics, and so on. But in your case, you need data right now. You need to have a reliability of whether a wind turbine is stopped and why is that, and you need to make a decision right now, whether you have to send a reset or it should be stopped, or you have to send someone to check out this wind turbine. So let's move one layer on top. So once we have that data, at least we know what is the current status of every device. Then we need to deal with ongoing issues like a wind turbine that is on fault. And in your case, also with the EDPR, your reality is that you are no longer dealing with one technology. You are now dealing with wind turbines, with solar plants, with hydro plants, and it's only going to grow with storage units and so on. So how has it changed dealing with wind turbines 5 years from before and now? How's dealing with faults, for instance?
Yes. Now it's no with the robot. No, it's the automation of the remote reset. No, is this a point? Is a key in order to have many challenges, no, that we have in the past and now in the present, because that is impossible, not to operate. No, the scenario that we have right now is we have not the robot, and also no, the robot is not focused not to operate, no, to reduce no the response time among 0 seconds. Also not to reduce the main time to repair, because no, the smart notification to the site. No, all this work is we thank you to the robot. It's to the robot. It's very important for us, and also we focus in the performance, to increase the performance of the site, but also we focus in the first of all the safe, operation of our safety way with the robot is possible, because this is one concern that we have when we start. And the second one also is the well-being of the operator, because when we have high resource or radiation, the stop of the wind turbine are in the same time, all in the same time. And for the operator, it's impossible, and they have stress. They have stress, and with the robot, the operator keep quiet. They check that all is working, and they allow also to increase the motivation of them, because during this period they could do another task that add value to the company also. This is, I think, also it's important for me. It's operate automatic, in order that people also feel well, and the well-being of the people increase and motivation. And we need for the scalability. We need scalability, because right now, it's growing, growing. The site that we take care more site, and if we have the automation, it's impossible to scale, not to have the scalability. Right? Why with the same resources we are able to take care more megawatts.
I understand the scalability is the sometimes it's like the trigger to make this decision and go into automation, because sometimes you just reach a level that there's no way to handle this anymore, right? And I always compare. I don't know if someone doesn't like the comparison, but I always like to compare with the telecom industry. Like up until certain expansion of a technology, you could use the cable gears to just connect the phone calls, but when everyone is using the phone calls, there's no way to have enough cable gears to do this, no? So the same way I think about wind turbines and solar inverters. Every wind turbine and solar inverter should have automation in place. So, of course, if we get to that point, there is no way to get to that level of efficiency doing it manually. Sonia, I don't know if you wanted to add something.
If you allow me to tell something connected with Antonio, and also what you have also referred now, is, okay, automation is a reality. We are also using automation in EDPR, but something that also has been very crucial in the last years, and probably most even crucial in the last 5, is how the wind turbine, or how the development to connect to the wind turbine information has been increased in the last years. How we have decreased the dependency of the manufacturers, at least for the oldest wind turbine models, having other solutions with partners like you, Green Eagle, and others, that have also allowed us to correct the first level. The first level for me, or for EDPR, is the wind turbine SCADA, the generation SCADA in the field. Okay, you could have the best system, the best second level SCADA, you could have all your process automate. But if you don't have the concentrator, the local concentrator for those inverters or for those wind turbines properly working, retrieving properly the information of the wind turbine, or even properly maintained, something as basic of making the hardware, the software, or other operative system maintenance, all the rest of the things will not work. So I think the difference was also make in these past 5 years due to the advance on the wind turbine knowledge to connect that information in the local scale.
Coming back to the topic of scale, at least in RWE, in offshore operations, we have a key word which is industrialize our setup. So we want to harmonize our processes, our digital ecosystem. So the next site that we have to onboard, it's almost like plug and play. We don't want to start having discussions which is the best system that we need to use, which is the best way to maintain our assets. That needs to be properly understood and needs to be harmonized across our fleet. And then how we are using the data differently from previous years or from the last years. On performance analysis, we're shifting a little bit from symptom analysis. So we want to move away from just raising our hand when there's a high temperature or when there's a sensor that it's not working, and really focus on failure mode analysis. So those are the useful operational insights that we can give to site operations to really understand what's wrong on the turbine, what needs to be done, which is the action. Do we need to replace a component? Do we need to maintain differently the way that we are doing our service maintenance? And that's really valuable information. And with that input, then we need to feed it back to our system. So we need to really close the gap. It's not just throwing things to site operations, but really getting their feedback because they have a lot of experience and we want to incorporate that back into our systems. That's perhaps the main difference over the last 10 years.
Awesome. I would like to highlight the fact, Antonio, that you mentioned well-being as something that is very relevant for us. And I wanted to highlight this because part of the concerns about automation is actually the contrary. People think of automation and the first thing that comes to mind is like, okay, if you're automating something, are you destroying jobs or what's happening there, right? Are they not needed anymore? But in the case of you are expressing the opposite. Like, thanks to automation, they have more time to do value activities and they are more motivated. And obviously, it's not a sexy feature for finance, but in the end, it's something that is extremely valuable, right? Because control room operators are actually very difficult people to find. They have a very high turnover, and part of this is actually because they're not happy with what they're doing. So if we can make their lives more encouraging and exciting, then that's a good thing.
No, yes. No, I'm right with you, but that first of all, that when you we decide not to automate, first of all, is refuse. Refuse. Well, automate. No, I lose my work. What are we going to do right now? No, don't worry. I have work. I have work to you. No, don't worry. But after when I start to use the robot, if the robot doesn't work, it's I don't know. It's horrible for that.
That's when they cannot do their work. Then, if it's not working, it's a little bit of change management that we need to.
It's horrible. Apply. What happened? No, it's like if the robot doesn't work, I didn't to do anything. No, what happened? No, we check. No, in the past. Now in the people face the automation. No, and also like you say. The site are grow and all we are building a lot of megawatt and we take care of a lot of wind turbines or inverter and in the industry they are losing the employees the employees of the people, the manpower, in order that they are able to have experience with the robot. One thing that is it's very important for us is that because we automate the processes, and if we face one situation, all the operator, we have the same response. The same response for when they face the same situation, and it's independent of the experience that they have. Because we have not a lot of people. Because grain. And this is very, very important because the standardization of the processes with the automation. Because the robot do that, the thing that we want. And if we have 10 inputs, the output always are the same. It not depend of the operator have more experience or less. The answer is the same.
Of course. Well, technology has that downside that you get dependent on it, but it's normal. It's like having a GPS. I don't know how to drive anymore without a GPS, but that's what it is. Not even like around my house. But I like having a GPS because now I can get everywhere. So the same way you have a system that automates what you want to do, but you are the one that decides where you want to go. Yeah. So that's the ultimate goal. We create tools so you can actually decide where you want to take your fleet. And in our case, we have customers that actually have complete different strategies because some of them are more interested in producing as much as possible because maybe they're going to decommission their sites in 2-3 years, while others are like in a different stage of their life cycle and they want to prolong their life as much as possible because it's already like their investment. So it depends on the customer. The same wind turbine can actually be operating in a complete different manner, and I think that's actually great as well. So Sonia, I would like to continue the conversation with something that you mentioned before. You talk about grid compliance. And as I mentioned, part of the consequence of the energy transition is that we're building more and more renewables, and because of that, we have more grid new regulations coming in basically every year. So I would like to understand how is this affecting EDP renewables? How has it changed from the past year for now? Do you feel like it's like changing more often now? It's like getting more difficult to adapt to it?
No, really, this is personal, totally personal opinion, not really EDPR global thinking. But I think for us it was more complicated. Like in 2009, we arrived in countries like Poland and Romania. We really didn't know a lot of details regarding regulation. We probably know something regarding active power regulation, something regarding reactive regulation in cost fee, but not a lot, because in the Spanish market we were not suffering other type of regulation. So the challenge for us in terms of regulation were those countries are rich in Europe, and now that we are feeling is that those challenges that we overcome in that moment, we are now doing the same things in other countries like Italy, like Spain, in which the regulation is become more complicated. One of the examples of the adaptations to regulation changes could be also Spain. Now we are, for example, and I understand for my colleagues and for Antonio specifically is the same. We are adapting our systems for the SRAP, the automatic regulation system, and to the normative that Red Eléctrica Española has recently published. And now it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that our system are already prepared for that, because it's, as we are talking here, is automation. If we are automate, we will not be the first that we will suffer the curtailment. If we are able to respond faster when the curtailment arrives to our assets, but the curtailment will arrive before to those that don't have this kind of automation. And I think we are in a good position. I understand also RWE too, to accomplish all this kind of challenge, because we have already overpassed them in the past.
Well, I think it's actually this is a great example. The SRAP system is a great example of how the transmission system operator is constantly changing the way to do things, and it's actually incredible that we are now allowing the transmission system operator to reduce the power output down to 0 in just 5 seconds. So that's why this automation is obviously necessary. There's no way to do it otherwise. But I think it's great news that we are actually able to adapt to these new regulations, because it's only going to grow. It's only going to continue to have more and more regulations like this. Antonio, I don't know if you wanted to add something.
No, I agree, with Sonia, but because we are stopping the synchronous power, and if we want not to increase the megawatts in renewables, we take care of this grid code that right now are covered by the synchronous power. And the grid regulators are implementing different mechanisms, like the SRAP, And another that is coming, the voltage regulation, and another one that maybe right now we didn't know that we have, but with the automation, we have in the future we have to fulfill this grid code with automation, no? Like the RAP or the voltage regulation, for instance, no? And without the automation, it's impossible not to fulfill the mandatory and the regulation, the grid code that are coming, because. I agree with Sonia on this one, and with automation.
With so many changes in regulation, I guess that sometimes you don't have that much time to implement that in the system and automate it. So what's been the experience that you've been having over the last years? Did the regulators and the governments understood that they need to allow more time for implementing it, or are we still having to deal with tight deadlines, and how this then it's transferred to companies like Green Eagle?
No, the deadline are if you don't fulfill, you lose money.
But have you seen these deadlines being extended over the last years? So is there a little bit more of understanding on this business, on this industry, that we need time precisely to adapt our systems, to automate our systems?
We have not time to adapt because no, the framework regulation no go live, and no from this moment we have suffering if we don't fulfill. We are suffering the situation, no? And no, the automation and response time, quick response time, in order to adapt our the system in order to fulfill the regulation. It's very important because if not, we lose a lot of money.
It's the same situation that we got 10, 15 years ago with all the changes on royal decrees and having to implement these in the systems.
Yes, it's not a period of the transition. No. This we have the regulation. Okay, if you want, you apply the regulation. But if you don't want or you delay, you are losing a lot of money, a lot of thousands of euros, hundred thousand euros.
Yeah, I guess the TSO has a very nice mechanism to speed up the development process, which is to curtail all the sites that don't comply with the regulation. So I think at least in Spain we are seeing that that's a really good push, because it's like all of a sudden they were curtailing a lot of sites. The owners were losing a lot of production and revenue. And thanks to this new grid code or grid mechanism, now the curtailments actually went down dramatically. So it's either you adapt or you're going to adapt or die, right?
For what the experts said, because they are really the experts, we're still having this issue, and this could be really a challenge with the growth plans that we have in each country. So with the size that we're going to be having to manage in each country, if we have quick changes in the regulation, then this will not allow us to change our systems accordingly. So it's also a challenge for you, because you need to really work agile and implement all this on real time almost.
Well,
Same
I
for
guess
you?
It's a challenge for everyone, right, Sonia?
A challenge for us, and we push to Alejandro.
No, I agree with what Antonio and Oliver say. I think it's a challenge for companies like Green Eagle that should have replacement solutions of old manufacturer solution, and also is a continuous challenge for the manufacturers. But I think at least for our pipeline or for those technologies that we are now buying, I think regulation for the new assets it will not be the worst scenario. Or the highest challenge could be higher challenge for those all assets that could need any kind of local retrofit. If for example, for example, in Spanish, an aggressive voltage regulation must apply in the coming months. Some of the assets could not be prepared for that, and will be again a soul in the company, a cost benefit count to see if the retrofit will have sense, or if the incomes will have sense according that CapEx, that investment in the retrofit.
Well, I think we've been talking about the grid compliance for a while, but with the grid compliance and and all these changes in the grid codes, I think they also come market opportunities, right? So I think one of the incentives for the TSO to actually contribute to the stability of the electrical grid is to encourage as many players as possible to participate in other markets, like secondary markets, ancillary services, and tertiary as well. But it's only going to evolve, right? So now with the storage units, this is only going to get more complex. And how do you see this moving forward?
But I think that we're moving forward, that in the future we have a more complex scenario, because we have to operate the hybridization and storage. We have operate different situations, different side, not generation, just also demand asset. And we face this in the future, this new scenario that we have not any regulation, for instance in Spain, or regarding the storage and the hybridization, but we will face in the short term this challenge, and we will face the solution in order to operate the situation, fulfill with the new regulation, and increase the performance of us. This is one point. Another point is regarding the commercial strategy. Also, it's changing the commercial strategy. Depending, we have a merchant, we have a PPA. The strategies are very different, and the artist is coming, and more input, that the way they said, that we have a different input, in order to have the best output. But this input in the future also we will face also.
Only complement something regarding hybridization. What we are doing, at least at this stage, is to be prepared for the worst scenario, to prepare the local system for the most complicated scenario, okay, to have the basis, and after that to enable the parts that will be needed according the regulation or the grid code will evolve in Spain, and really it's not Spain, it's Portugal, it's Italy, it's Poland, at least all the countries in which have presence, we are suffering the same not clear scenario regarding hybridization. That we are doing is to prepare for the worst scenario that sometimes or always should work.
I think that one word that can describe our industry is resilience. So we have seen so many changes over the last years. We've been going through mergers, integrations, changes in the regulatory system, and we kept managing our wind farms. We kept operating our wind farms. So I think that perhaps it's in our DNA in this industry, but that we know how to adapt to these changes and how to react to all these changes. So whatever it comes, then we will know how we will be able to manage it, despite having a way more complex setup, as you said, Alejandro.
Yeah, but the complexity in the end is only going to grow, because you can have grid regulation in place while you are participating in secondary markets, while you have like a PPA. So it's extremely difficult to make a right decision at a certain time, right? So one of the challenges that I would like to drop here is my perception is that operations run in a minute-by-minute time frame. So what's right now happening? What are the turbines that are stopped? What do I do with them? While finance is moving normally in a monthly basis. So how can we connect these two worlds and these two time frames of decisions? Because many of the operations decisions are based on finance, of course, but at the same time, I don't see this a very well-connected bridge between the two of them. So how do you see this?
I've seen people in the audience laughing when you said that finance having a different cadence there. I think a good example of that is moving to revenue-based availability, for instance. We started years ago defining time-based availability in our contracts. Then luckily now we moved to a more production-based availability because we want to take into consideration all the curtailments. But that's not the end of the road. We need to move towards revenue-based availability, and that's where we need finance data on a near real-time basis, more or less. We cannot wait 1 month or a couple of months until we have the closing of the financial system. We also need to understand the complexities of this system. So there's a reason why it's having a different pace. As Antonio mentioned, we may have different merchant scenarios, we may have PPAs, we may have hedge paths. So sometimes it's not that easy incorporating real-time information from finance into the operational business. But we need to find a balance, and I would agree that we need to speed up a little bit some of these metrics in the finance world.
Sorry, I don't know if you want to add something on this.
No, I think the way to connect that is through data and through the cloud. I think there is no other option. At least in EDPR, we were like in two wars until now. One is the war of the operational data, the data coming from the field to the central SCADA and going to the operational database. Okay. Now that we are building is another infrastructure in the cloud that will be able to connect all the systems, to connect those operational data to those financial data. And having the data, you have the tool to after that develop that you want, develop any kind of calculations, any kind of criteria, algorithms, and so on, or other ways. And I totally agree with Oliver that the availability evolution will be sure in that way. But the most important is to develop the basis, and the basis is the systems and to have the data connected. And with that, we are able to achieve this new challenge to evaluate the assets in other way and in an only financial way, to say in some words.
And we really need to understand what the data means. So when we were defining KPIs years ago in RWE, we got a discussion with someone really, really wise on that topic, and he said that you could tell as many lies as you want based on the KPIs that you are using. So we really need to understand which is the data behind the KPI to make the right decision. Otherwise, we can take completely the wrong decision. And especially when you're crossing operational data and finance data, we need to really understand what's the data that we're using at any time.
No, I agree that the only way not to approach both is first of all, not to have the data in one platform, and after with this data, connect the different application, operation application of financial application or commercial application in order to have the same information in the same time. And like Oliver said, also is to explain between us what there is behind of this data, in order that we understand the same, and we are not checking, or we are any KPI, all of us, commercial, or operation of financial, now we are coming and we interpret in the same way this KPI and this information. But the base is to have data and connect the different applications that we have.
Yeah. Have you ever found a conflict of interest between finance and operations, like at some point ever has happened that there's a participation in a market, but you cannot comply with it, or it's a challenge technically?
I think, especially in our case, we're having a lot of interaction with controlling, and controlling, perhaps they are the natural bridge between the operational business and then finance. So we're doing a lot of progress. I've seen a lot of proactiveness from their side on that regard. So I'm positive that we will continue exploring possibilities together.
Yes, I agree. The best way is to work together in order that because sometimes maybe not the prioritization that we have operational maintenance with another department are different, and the only way to approach is discuss and going forward in the same direction. There is no another way in order not to mitigate this different prioritization. Okay? That many times is the target. No more is the problem is the prioritization, not that we have a different department. No?
From my side, I have not any conflict as you mentioned, because probably I'm more in the real-time world, in the system world, and as I think it was Antonio who said, is working together, and in this case is the same name, is the control, planning and control, that is the bridge between the operational and the finance world. All the things will be aligned, but I don't have more to add in this point.
Perfect. Well, I would say that it has to change a little bit the perspective of the how we see the profitability of the wind farms or solar plants. My perception is that owners tend to see this as a business plan that has a certain duration, and then they want to stick with the budgets every year. But then there's an opportunity here to change that if you have market opportunities at the same time. So, for instance, if you link finance situation at the current time with operations, you can actually decide, okay, so we have negative pricing, so we're going to produce less this year because the market conditions are not actually good. But in theory, but the reality is that these hours of production will move forward into the future, where it's hopefully there's better market conditions, right? But that requires the decision of like accepting that the business plan is actually going to grow and extend. But that's actually hard, I understand. But at least the technology should allow that to be easy. Right, I think everyone is waiting for the drinks and the ham to start. So maybe just give a chance for a few questions. I don't know if someone has a question. All right, I think the desire for ham is...
Not all at the same time, please. One by one.
This is the ham effect. All right, so I just wanted to thank you guys and girls for being here and share this time with us. It's very excited to have this space of collaboration and it's open-minded. And I hope that we can keep these conversations offline so we can keep working together. So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Alejandro.
Thank you, Alejandro.
Thanks so much.